Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sharvari Joyce, and I'm the manager of pre-arrival and mentoring services at JVS Toronto. JVS Toronto has over 70 years of experience in helping job seekers reach their potential. 9 locations across GDA, and we offer specialized programs for newcomers, youth, people with disabilities, the unemployed, and the underemployed. Our audience today, however, includes participants of the Canada InfoNet pre-arrival program who are preparing to arrive in Canada soon, as well as the program's volunteer mentors who provide their valuable guidance and support to internationally trained professionals arriving in Canada. I'd like to welcome you all to this panel discussion. The topic for today is how to thrive in your career in Canada, and we are joined by amazing panelists who will share different perspectives about their experience immigrating to Canada and establishing a career here. Before I introduce the panelists, a few notes on the webinar today. And could I also ask panelists to mute themselves when they are not speaking? There's a little bit of background noise. Thank you very much. This is a panel discussion for about an hour, so please feel free to share your thoughts and questions in the questions window. We'll try to incorporate these questions during the discussions. If not, we'll try to answer them in the end. Since we are all still under lockdown here in Canada, we are logged in to the webinar from our residences. So please bear with us in case we face technical difficulties or if a delivery person comes knocking on the door. So please bear with us. With that, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to today's panelists. We have with us Olabisi Adesina. She is a program alumni and a mentor now, and she works as a senior business analyst and solutions architect at SASKTEL. And then we have Veronica Seeto. She is also a mentor, a long-term mentor with the program, and she is a vice chair at WINS Toronto. Then we have Nour Alsoori. She's also been a program alumni, and now she's mentoring with the program, and she works as a senior project manager at City of Toronto. And last but not the least, Noti Akputevi. She is a program alumni. She is also working as HR partner at a global tech company. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to the panel discussion. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Maybe we can get started with each one of you giving a little bit of kind of an introduction to your background, how you came to Canada, just a little bit from you. Maybe we can get started with Nour. Would you like to get started?
Sure, thank you very much. Hi, my name is Nour Alsoori. I'm originally from Syria. I have a master's degree of architecture from Damascus University. I was working in Damascus, and then I moved to Dubai in 2014, where I worked there as a project manager for a project developers. In 2018, I was able to move to Canada as a PR. And when I arrived here, before arriving, I used JVS pre-arrival services that included Canada InfoNet mentoring program, and that was very helpful for me when I was searching for a job even before I arrived. When I arrived, I found a job as a project planner at UHN, University Health Network. And then after a year, I moved to the City of Toronto as a senior project manager. I have been working there now for over a year, managing a couple of the city's subway projects, which are considered like one of the mega projects right now in the city.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nour. Noti, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Noti Akputevi, and like Sharvari said, I recently moved to Canada and was part of the JVS program, actually. So prior to moving to Canada, I lived and worked in Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa. And I've spent the last 10 years working in human resources in a number of roles. I worked in talent recruiting, then some learning and development, and then some HR business partnership, worked as an HR manager as well. And in April 2018, I thought that Canada seemed like a bright idea because I knew a few colleagues of mine who had moved to Canada successfully from Nigeria, and they seemed to be doing really well. So in 2018, I registered for the pre-arrival program and was connected to the JVS team, and also was connected with a mentor, someone who was working in my field within HR in Canada at the time, who gave very, very helpful insights for how I could think about settling in Canada, and specifically in Ontario, where I was deciding to move to. So I successfully moved in 2018, and I did initially get a job in HR, but it was just a lot. There was just a lot to work through. When you're managing culture shock, you're dealing with settling into this new environment, this new lifestyle. So I did actually, take a break off of work and went back to full-time school. I hadn't been in school since, at the time, maybe 10 or 12 years. But I went and did a post-grad. And at the time as well, I was also thinking of potentially switching careers. So I went and did something completely different. It turned out to be a one-year program. I wrapped up that program and then got a job in HR, and then found a second project within the field that I decided to do a program in. So it's ESL, English as a Second Language, and then kind of tried to do both and combine them both. And then, switched out of that job, got another job within Ontario, where I currently work, which is a tech company rather. And then moved to Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo, to actually do the role.
Thanks a lot, Noti. Veronica. Sorry, we don't hear you, Veronica.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Veronica, and I arrived in Canada as a teenager with my family. It was actually the second migration for my parents. My parents are originally from China. They immigrated to Fiji, and then I was born there, and then we immigrated as a family in 1965. I was fortunate to be able to go to high school and university here in Canada. And then in my 50s, after been working for a while in IT, I was in software development and IT, working for profit organizations and not-for-profit organizations. In my 50s, I decided to do some volunteer work, and I've been mentoring for about 16 years through the two programs, through Canada InfoNet pre-arrival program, as well as through the TRIAC post-arrival program. So I've been helping immigrants, professional immigrants in IT after they arrived in Canada and be in the pre-arrival program. I actually retired from IT about 3 years ago, but I wasn't ready to kind of give up my involvement with the community. So I continue to mentor, and I've also been working with a not-for-profit called Wins Toronto, where we are trying to promote inclusive work for everyone in the Canadian workplace. Okay, that's my background.
Thanks so much, Veronica. Olabisi.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Olabisi Adesina. I'm from Nigeria, like Noti said before. We're from the same country. I came to Canada in 2017, and I went back home because I lost my dad, and also because I wanted to gain some experience in broad IT. Now, before 2017, I was working as a pure BA, and I was leading a BA team in the biggest telecoms company in Africa, MTN Group. And then so I thought to myself, I need to know the IT from the core IT field. So I went back home 2017 to do my father's burial, and also to work in a core IT function as a lead solution consultant back then in core IT. So I could gain that and experience in IT before I came to Canada. So I came back to Canada in 2018, with my kids finally. And since then, excuse me, I've been working in core IT. Currently, I work as in a dual role of a senior BA and a solution architect in a leading tech company in Saskatchewan here. And it's been quite a ride, you know. I had issues settling down psychologically, but on the career side, it's been quite smooth for me. I didn't have issues on that end for me personally. And that was a shock because I thought that was where I'll have the biggest issue in the coming to Canada. But funny enough, I didn't have any issues on that side. And so it took me like 18 months to settle in, I mean, psychologically, but now I'm fully settled and I'm having a ride. So happy to be here, everybody. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Olabisi. And so that's such an important point that you said. And I think we can kind of start our conversation from there, where you said, you know, what you expected. And I'm sure each one of you, whether it's Olabisi, Noti, or Nour, Veronica, you had a sort of a different immigration journey. So this might be more relevant to them. You did your research. You put in the work to kind of understand what is needed to be successful in Canada, or how to find employment in Canada. But I'm sure the research that you did and what you came here, there were differences between sort of the ground reality of things, right? So can we talk a little bit about that, and maybe you can get started, Olabisi?
You know, before I came down here, we went for this full day program organized by the government of Canada back at home, where they kind of prepare you for what you're gonna meet and, you know, the highs, the lows. But really, I wasn't listening. I was so happy that I have a PR, so I was thinking, oh my God, what can be the issues? Excuse me, come on, you know. One get it, and people always talking about your career. You have to get what they call a survivor job. You know, you have to get a job in a Walmart or in a Tim Hortons just to survive before you get in your field because of the so-called kind of experience issue. So I had that mindset. You know, when I get in here, I'm going to, like, you know, just like have, you know, everything is working fine. It's Canada, it's North America, you're in a developed country, you have no issues. But on landing, you know, I deal with driving. I failed my driving test 4 times. You know, I I thought to myself, my God, how can I kept failing. Like I was getting like minus 50, you know, that really disturbed me a lot, you know. And I had to get to the grocery shopping and, you know, all the road signs and the rules and the laws. Back at home, we didn't have all those things. Just drive like you wanted to, nobody caught another. So I was like, you know, so that really shook me up a bit. And that was the part where nobody discussed coming down to Canada. It's all about your career. But in my career, I landed in Canada in August. I got my job in October. And since then, I've been employed since then. So I didn't have any issues on the side that people really talked about. But that soft side, you know, the culture, you know, the driving, the rules, the regulations, you know, the financial planning, all those really shook me up, you know. So it took me time to get to that, you know, to adjust and get to a comfortable level. So all in all, I would say still what I expect to happen didn't happen. What I thought would not happen.
And thank God for that. Like if you had to deal with the career changes as well as like settlement issues, that is so overwhelming, right?
Yeah. So really, and so right now, so it's all good. So, and I thought to myself, you know, for people that are coming in after me, it would be good to offer them this perspective that, look, when you come to Canada, it's not just about the career path. You need to understand that, look, the other things to think about, you know, schooling, education, the rules, the laws, financial planning, all those need to be seriously keen, you know, into consideration. And that's the thing that they don't really happen when we go for this pre-arrival training. It's all about your career, which is very important. I know that, but really, you know, at times, not being able to adapt in that psychological aspect kind of affects the career bit of the whole thing. So we need to understand, moving to a unique country, it's totally life-changing. And I have 3 kids, you know, but my kids all adapted so well, you know. If I remember, when I want to cross the road in Nigeria, you run across the road, cars will wait for you. And there's someone, don't. I said, no, you have to run. I said, no, you don't have to run. You can walk. So it took me a while to, you know, in car you can walk across the road, the cars will stop for you. And, you know, all that was just, it was just so difficult, you know, adapt to that mindset.
Kids do adapt faster for sure. Nour, would you like to share a little bit of your experience with that?
Yeah, exactly. The settlement is not as easy as anyone thought. Like, for example, I did settle before in Dubai. I didn't have the same issues that I faced here. For example, you cannot find a house if you don't have a guarantor or a credit score. So it is not like you walk into the building and you can rent a house. You will need to have a realtor, for example. Even the city itself, how the districts are far away from each other, how to move around. For example, when I came here, I thought the downforce were the downtown, but like apparently it's a different area, and you will need to go to the downtown to come to see like, actually where the business hub is. So all of these little things. And what I found as well interesting about finding a job here, which is something that I didn't have before in the previous experience, is actually the education, the importance of education, and the name of school that you are graduating from, and the power of the program that you are graduating from. So when someone is coming from, for example, for me, Damascus University was like the #1 university in Damascus for sure. And in Dubai, it was like well recognized, and it was considered one of the best universities to get architects or engineers from. But when I came here, I am like competing with someone who is applying from University of Toronto, Waterloo, or Ryerson, and they have the Canadian experience, they have the Canadian knowledge, they know the building code, for example, that is taught to them in school, which is totally different from the procurement model or the construction code that we had at home. All of this are things to be considered when applying for a job here in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nour, I want to kind of emphasize that point that you just said. I think, that awareness that, I may come from a good school from my home country, but when I transition to Canada, people don't really recognize the value of this university, or it might be the top 10 university or even the top university, and it's not necessary that the Canadian employer recognizes that. So it's kind of the job of the job seeker, of the immigrant, to kind of sell that thought also to some extent, right? Mention it's part of that building that brand for yourself, and you mentioning that, oh, I graduated out of the top 10 university, rather than just mentioning the name of the university. Just that awareness can actually make a lot of difference to your profile, the way you build your profile. So excellent point. Thanks for sharing that. Noti, is there something you would like to add?
Yes, and Nour and Olabisi I was nodding and I was laughing alongside, because these were all things as well that I have experienced, and maybe even some of it still experiencing. And maybe in my mind, like in my response, I will try and connect both of what they said. Olabisi spoke a lot about the psychological side of relocating, and Nour kind of spoke about the more certification, Canadian experience sort of settling into Canada. But what I wanna synthesize it and share that what those two things, and all of what they've shared as well, kind of tie into is working through your mindset. Because relocating to a new country is probably the most jarring experience that anyone goes through. If you're a younger person, it might be easier, but I personally feel that the older you get, the harder it is to actually immigrate. So if you've lived, and even if you've lived in different parts of the world as well, right? But every time you have to get up and go and move somewhere else, it's like starting fresh. It's starting from ground zero, essentially. It's you feel like a baby, right? And that's why, even through my ESL experience, I have so much of a greater appreciation for folks who move to Canada, who do not speak English or do not speak French as a first language. Because even though I spoke English moving to Canada, everything seemed like gibberish.
Yes.
and it was from simple things like, to Olabisi's point, getting lost on the bus, right? Like totally getting lost, and having Google Maps in one hand where you're actually looking at where you're going to get up, but actually still missing your stop. To trying to do the calculations and trying to do the math when you're at the grocery store. To not knowing how to network with folks if you wanted. As I was job hunting, as I was looking for specific roles within my field and within my industry. And then it was dealing with extreme, and this one's so critical, extreme amounts of loneliness, right? I think one of the biggest things that hit me the most, that I was aware of, but I probably didn't understand the degree of, was complete loss of community for me. So I moved as a single person. So I moved from Nigeria. And again, for context, Nigeria is on the other side of the world. It's nice and warm and sunny, and everyone is in everyone's business. Maybe Olabisi gets that more so, right? And then I moved to this new place where everyone just kind of goes about doing their thing. Like, people are polite, but yeah, like, you kind of just move on and you just do what you got to do. So huge sense of loneliness, just totally being cut off from my family, from my friends, from people who I've known all of my life, and also dealing with time zone issues because everyone was either 5 hours ahead of me or 6 hours ahead of me, depending on daylight savings, right? Daylight saving time. So I think one of the things that I was very keenly aware of was winter, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to make sure that I'm warm and I have like my boots and I have like my gloves and everything. Yeah. And the first winter was probably tough, but like after that, I was like, yeah, I kind of got used to it. Yeah. Right. But it was not, for me, it was part of that loneliness and loss of community was helping people who I cared about and who cared about me on the other side of the world understand the experiences I was going through. It's really hard to be able to express that fully to every person who you care about, you know, especially if they're not living that experience with you, right? Like, how do you explain that they shouldn't call you at odd hours in the day because maybe they've interrupted you in sleep, or maybe you're studying for an exam, or maybe you're in transit and you don't even have Wi-Fi access to be able to do like a video call, right? So it's all the little things that you end up relying a lot on yourself to figure out a lot of things. And that comes with a lot of anxiety, or at least for me, it did. A lot of anxiety of figuring out like really simple things that then build into all the bigger things. So it was why when I first landed and I started my new role, I actually did get a job like within the first 7 weeks of landing. And it was a decent enough job, right? It really was. But there was just too much happening in that role. They wanted me to be supporting more than one site. It was just a lot. I was going to be driving across the entire province. At the time as well, I hadn't also gotten my drive test. And this year, I actually also failed my drive test the one time. And this was where they told me, oh yeah, just go there. And it should be a walk in the park. You should get your driver's license really easily. But then I went and I failed, right? So there was a lot happening. And I was like, I think I need to put a pause on whatever is going on right now because I've got to figure out what I'm doing here, right? And I also have to acknowledge that I did have the privilege of having like my proof of funds intact to a large extent, so I could work out like a budget over the 1 year period I was in school, and I was doing full-time school as well. A few people advised and said, you know, maybe work on the side and go to school, and I know a lot of people who do that. A lot of my classmates as well were doing that. But I had to really pause and think through what felt right for me. And at that time, I knew I could not do anything else except just focusing on school. And school as well was going to help me not only get certified, but also just help me slow down. Like, just help me understand everything, right? Understand, like, from simple things like understanding like all the Canadian slang and accents and like places and culture. Like, when people start talking about hockey, for instance, I've never played hockey a day in my life, right? But it's such a big sport in Canada.
It is a big thing, No, and also it's about kind of pace, like being kind to yourself, right? And when everything is new, like just pacing it out and saying, you know, we'll get there. We will assimilate, but it's just to give yourself that time sometimes. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing all this. And that's why I feel it's important as especially people who've immigrated into this country. And like I immigrated about 10 years back. And so it's important to share these stories because that way someone else who may be going through, like someone else who may be feeling bad that they fail their drive test once will feel better when they hear someone else failed it 4 times, right? So that's kind of important to share our stories. And with that, I want to just bring in Veronica into this. Veronica, you've had a slightly different journey where you had the opportunity to arrive here when you were much younger. And so the assimilation was probably different for you, but you do talk to a lot of people who are immigrating. So you understand both the sides of the story. So what is it that kind of you see from your perspective in terms of what people have expectations before they arrive, and what is it that they have to deal with once they come here?
Yes, yeah, I came like as a teenager. I was 13, so yes, my adjustment was easier. But my parents, as you mentioned, Noti, the older you are, my father was 56 when he made his migration to Canada, and this is in 1965, before we had any agencies to help you. So I could understand from his point of view what is happening, and it's really difficult because I do talk to a lot of mentees from another country, and sometimes I have to be careful what I say because they don't really have any conception of what it's like. Like, as a story, I can tell you, like, one of my cousins who came to Canada from Fiji, which is like a warm climate like Nigeria, and he told me that before he came to Canada, when he told someone he's coming to Canada, the person took him into a walk-in freezer, you know, one of the big walk-in freezers, and he put him in there and he said, that's what it's going to be like in Canada. So that's how he introduced him to the winter of Canada. But you know, it's one of the things that is very difficult for people to understand. So I have to sort of tell them slowly. And yes, it is different. The culture is different. And it's hard for a lot of people because they didn't do a job search, because what a lot of the people that I'm working with now are usually like in their 30s or 40s. And they started out, got a job out of school fairly easily through connection or whatever, as an intern or whatever. And they haven't even done a resume in 10 years. They don't even, so, you know, it's really hard. And I try to explain to them, it's not going to be, a lot of them think they will get a job before they come to Canada. So I have to slowly kind of work with them that that's probably possible, but not generally true. And you have to work at customizing your resume. So that is really hard for people to deal with, like making that mindset. I think it's a mindset that you have to write a resume. And I said, I've written one for 10 years. I don't even know what to do, in addition to the culture of what it is. So the more you can prepare before you come, find out, join WhatsApp groups, connect with people on looking for housing, what is involved. I think all of that, and it's right, it's not just looking for a job. So you have to figure out what works for you. And I think, you know, and whether you have family here, if you have friends and family, that's really, really helpful. That's based on my experience and talking with people, have to be able to have a support system, because it is really difficult and a big challenge to make it, but it's also about positive mindset. And an advice for learning to drive, when you come to Canada, and many people told me this, they said, I drove in wherever you come from, England, or I've driven. I never had to drive. I've been driving for 10 years. And it's a big shock when they come here. So the advice is pay for 6 or 8 lessons with a driving instructor, and they will teach you the rules. And I've been driving for many years, and even I have sloppy habits because we build up like these driving habits. It's worth investing for 6 to 8 or 10 lessons with a Canadian driving instructor. Make sure he's legal and he's not taking advantage of you, because they do have people that do that, and that they give you lessons, and then hopefully you will be able to pass with 1 or 2 tries.
Yeah, thanks, Veronica. And like one of the points that you mentioned about it is easier if you have friends and family. I just wanted to also talk about, but there are opportunities, several opportunities to have those, build a community for yourself. There are many networking groups, many, whether it's like based on your ethnicity or based on your profession, or I have honestly not seen, like, I immigrated from India. Like, I don't know of this many professional or otherwise groups being, having that opportunity to interact with people through these groups, right? So there is opportunities there, like where, if you don't know anyone, like Noti said, she immigrated here on her own. Kudos to her. Like, I don't know how she did it, but there are opportunities to kind of, create that community, but it's an effort. we are not used to doing that, as like we have a ready given network from wherever we come from, but it takes an effort to come here and do that. But it's about, like you said, mindset, changing that mindset to be able to and being open to doing something like that. And to just take us a little forward, and we're getting questions, and in that, like, of course, one of the main things people are asking would be about COVID, right? Because they're still at a pre-arrival stage. They're kind of trying to make that decision about, not only is it to immigrate to a new country, I have to leave my well-paying good job and decide to move to a country during a pandemic and it's all mostly shut down. And I don't expect us to be experts here. I don't expect us to be answering in a way where we know the answer. But if you were to immigrate, would you immigrate around a pandemic? And do you have any thoughts around that? Like, do you have any tips around that?
I think I can take this one. I think it's an opportunity as much as it is a risk, because right now a lot of companies are doing their interviews online by default because they are not inviting people over. So while it was an anomaly before to have an online interview in order to get a job, it is much easier now to send a resume and for people to actually be willing to sit on a Skype meeting and have that discussion with you offline, and maybe you will be able even to start. I don't think you can start before arriving actually and landing in Canada because of tax purposes and all of that thing, but I think you can start searching for a job, and maybe searching for a job while in a pre-arrival stage has never been easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I tell my mentees that, look, you can start with a remote option. It's, I mean, it's a real option now in these times that we are in, you know. So I think, look, start applying. You know, I won't say land right now. I tell you, apply from where you are right now. Try and see if you can start remotely. That gives like kind of soft landing, you know, and just try, just put your CVs there, your resumes there, and try and get some interview. It will give you a feel of how the interview process works in Canada, you know. So, but as for them planning physically, I would tell them, well, for now, just start remotely. I think that's what I would tell them from my own point of view.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to add that there's some folks who, maybe because of the current visa expiration that they've got open, how long that is open for and all. I'm not a visa expert, but what I've heard from friends, folks who've gone through this process, is that you want to make sure that before that time period that your visa expires, you actually do land in country. So in addition to what Olabisi and Nour have said, is keep that in mind as well as you work through deciding whether you want to come or not come. But if you've gotten your visa and there's like an expiration period, I would recommend that you make sure to get into Canada before that expiration period elapses, because then I hear it's a little bit more complicated to try and get that renewed for the very first time where you're landing in Canada.
Yeah. And I do also point them to the Canadian website. And from what I read in the past few days, seems and even allowing PR holders to land. They're not part of the essential classes of people to land in Canada right now. So I told them, I say, you know what, check on that website and follow the instructions in there. It's important you follow, because you do want to get on the plane and land and find I cannot enter into the country, right? So I told them, you know what, go to that website, read through everything that's there, make sure you follow the instructions to the T. That's what can help them as well.
Yeah.
Good catch, actually, good point as well.
Yeah, I just want to mention that I actually had a pre-arrival mentee who arrived in May last year, in the middle of when we just started the COVID. It's been a year now in Canada, so I think we kind of have adjusted to it, but when she arrived in May, but what she did, I thought, was quite flexible. She was planning to come to Toronto, but she decided to just land in Vancouver, and because she didn't want to quarantine twice. And she'd done a lot of pre-preparation, and she was able to find a job within about 6 weeks of arrival in May. You know, so it's in the middle of a pandemic. She got a position, and she's happy there. She's actually now moved and got a second position. So after coming to Canada, so there are jobs. She hopes to come to Toronto one day, but we'll see. You know, it depends where her career takes her. So I just want to say that, you know, with the right preparation, be aware of what you're going on. You can find a position.
Absolutely. And And Veronica, that's an excellent point. Two things that you've said I want to come back to. The first one would be the preparation part of it. And we have been talking about things that we've not, you probably during immigration, that was not expected and it happened and how you dealt with it. But I want to kind of also emphasize that there is a structured way to prepare for things in Canada, whether it is the settlement related issues or employment related issues. You're all, if you're already enrolled with pre-arrival services, or if you're already here and there are settlement organizations which can help you through some of these things. There are several forums where information can be accessed, and that part of, okay, how to get a driver's license in, whether you're coming to Ontario or Vancouver, you can find that out in terms of information. Just make checklists, make checklists of information that you need and start preparing for it. There are several government websites that can be accessed to get valid information. So please go there, participate in these pre-arrival services, enroll in services that you are referred to, make use of all of these. These are all funded for a reason. We are here to help and support participants through all of these questions and things that can be predicted. And then you have to deal with things that cannot be predicted, or maybe you may not have prepared for. So just wanted to emphasize that. And I want to come back to the point, Veronica, where you mentioned about your mentee and this aspect of pivoting, this aspect of being able to adapt to new information that you've received and pivoting, whether it's where I will settle or where I will find employment or what kind of role I will look at. So those career transitions, right? Let's talk a little bit about that and what your thoughts are on that. How essential is it as a new immigrant or someone new to a country to be able to absorb all of this information and to make decisions that might be, okay, with my skills, maybe I'm better suited in these roles, or maybe I should acquire a skill in a completely new area that my employment prospects are improved, or maybe in terms of settlement. One of the things we emphasize in the program is also about why do you always have to focus on settling in bigger cities, right? There are many job opportunities in small centers, and they need these skilled immigrants who are coming into the country. So why not, and there are better cost of living, better job opportunities there, why would we not explore some of those opportunities, right? So that ability to kind of absorb all of this information and make decisions that will change the path that you have chosen. Let's talk a little bit about that. And if you have any thoughts, I'd let anyone who wants to start talking about this.
Okay, back at home, all my friends were landing in Ontario, and I was thinking, at the point I thought it's only Ontario, like the province in Canada. What happened? I was just, that was everybody. Oh, I'm going to Toronto. I'm going to Ontario. I'm oh really? So people tend to think, that's where it's true to a point. That's where you have the most opportunities. I mean, Notte can kind of speak to that part even much more. I know that, but I was kind of tired of the fast pace of the big city life back in Lagos. I wanted something a bit calmer, So I came to Saskatchewan, and I'm in Regina now. And I think, I can plan my time. I mean, there are times I leave my house 8 o'clock in the morning, drop the kids in school. I still get to work at 8:30. That completely blew my mind when I was like, my God, I can do all this in half an hour, I mean, so, and in this part of Canada, you have a lot of you have a lot of, job offers that, you can actually go for because it's small and the skill is not so much. So you have a kind of a bigger chance, so to speak, to get a good paying job in this part of Canada. But back in your Ontario, those big cities, there's so much competition. And I think because of that, what you can ask in terms of pay and salary kind of dwindles and reduces. But in this part of the country, you have more opportunities. And what you earn can go a longer way than what you will spend it on in a bigger city. So people should focus on, it's a small place, focus on the other things that you can see, the commute, the opportunities. I mean, a dollar can go far more in Saskatchewan than it will go in an Ontario, And also I tell people that, look, when you come to Canada, research on the rules that you want to do here and look for what they ask for. look at what, look at what keeps coming up, certifications, qualifications, and try and make sure that you actually prepare yourself to have those things in place. Don't think I can just come in. I mean, back at home, you might be a star player, but here in Canada, excuse me, you're like starting from, like Noto said, from ground zero. So you have to prove that you know this job. Now, the best way to prove that you know the job is having a global standardized, what's it called, certification that speaks to know, okay, yes, I'm a BA, but I have a CBAP, I have a PMI, CBA that proves that I have none of the best practices for this field. So I tell people, look at the job roles, what you did ask for, and make sure you are prepared to have those things with you when you come into this country. So it gives you a foot into the door. You can't come with just the experience of, oh, I'm a BA, but how do you quantify and validate that experience? So that you know what you have to prove that you know this job. It's really crucial, to do that as well.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I wanted to add in that I think one of us had said it earlier on, that one of the biggest things I think for anyone, whether or not you're thinking of relocating, what province you're going to move to, if you want to continue your role, or if you want to do a different role, how you should be networking, who you should be speaking to, all of that is a growth mindset. It's so critical. And maybe one way to think about it, that I also think about it, is that everything is new and it's this big adventure. So what I said to myself, and every time I remind myself, is that I'm on this huge Canadian adventure. So with adventures, what happens is sometimes, well, you have to do a lot of research, right? You have to do a lot of asking of questions, but asking the right people as well. So if you're potentially looking for a loan, you most likely should head to the bank or head to a financial institution to help you figure out a loan. Or if you're looking for a house, then you go find a realtor or someone who rents, right? So you want to make sure as well that you're accessing information from the right sort of sources, one. Two, you're validating some of that information that you do have, right? So to Shabri's earlier point, there's lots of resources online, lots of groups as well, lots of people who share their own experiences based on, however they've experienced Canada or however they've tried to grow in their careers. And all that is helpful context, but it's always good to validate. So I would typically advise, go on, like Bisi said, go on all the Canadian government or provincial government's websites. If the information you're looking for is not on there, see if there's a phone number you can put a call through to speak to someone in that office who can also clarify any further and additional questions, or even validate some more information, or potentially even share more information that maybe isn't online or isn't easily accessible. When I landed, this was pre-COVID, so what I did that first summer actually, and this one was funny, everywhere I wanted to go to, and this one, everyone kept saying to me, no, don't do that. But I really wanted to, one, see places, and two, just get better acquainted with the city that I was living in. So I would always find the offices and actually would make appointments, physical appointments. And I was going to actually sit with people and have conversations around whether it was school, whether it was my drive test, whether it was anything else, even my health card. Like I showed up to one of the Service Ontario offices because I wanted to do that. So I would say first, growth mindset. Secondly, validating any information that you're accessing. And then the third thing is just stay open, really. Whether it's Saskatchewan for you, or you want to go to Vancouver, British Columbia, or you want to remain in Toronto. Before I was moving to Canada, I was like, oh yeah, Vancouver is so nice and warm. They say it's rainy though, but it'll be nice to go there. And that was kind of my plan. The plan was to get like Toronto was the midpoint. I was going to land here, like land in Toronto, and then at some point get on a plane to British Columbia. But it hasn't happened yet. So who knows? It just Vancouver, British Columbia might still be in my future, in my near or far future. But whatever that looks like, maybe do a pros and cons list based on conversations you're having with people, based on information you're accessing online or you're getting through other resources. Do a pros and cons list, because you will always find that there are pros and cons to every single thing that you decide on. If you want to stay in a big city, obviously rent is going to be more expensive, food potentially will be more expensive, lifestyle in general, it would definitely be more impersonal. Versus if you stayed in a smaller city and you get a better community feel, if you've got young children as well, you could potentially can spend a lot of time making sure that they have like a nice environment to grow up in. If you've got a spouse as well, you know, there are different ways to do that. You can also even do that in Ontario. This is the also really cool thing that I've come to find out, is that if you're looking for the you know, slow pace, not as crazy lifestyle like Olabisi was looking for, there are also smaller cities in Ontario that you can get that, right? But if you also want to do that in other provinces as well, there are several opportunities. One of the things I've always said to myself, even right now, is I'm not tied to any one province. And if there's a role or if there's an opportunity that presents itself, and I do a pros and cons list, and my pros are more, I will take a serious look at that opportunity. So I think that that's also really helpful, because that way we make sure we don't box ourselves in. And whether that's when people say to you, oh, come to this province, houses are so much cheaper here. Yes, houses are cheaper, but maybe there are not as many great jobs in the field that you're interested in. If you were deciding to career switch, however, that could also be an opportunity for you to switch careers, go do a program, also use that opportunity to start at ground zero, and just be patient with yourself. Because if you're starting out somewhere, it won't be the exact same pace as wherever you came from. And that could be in whatever like aspect of your life. Sometimes it could be career, but it could also be building community. It could also would be understanding even the culture, or understanding how to go about, you know, getting stuff done day by day. So it's staying open and just really trying to be positive through it all. Whatever happens, just pat yourself on the back and be like, part of the adventure, and keep it moving.
Absolutely.
Well, in my opinion, like if we are going to concentrate on the career path itself, it's very important to prepare in advance for multiple scenarios. Like try to search for a job that you are willing to do, not necessarily under the same title that you have at the moment. Try to search for different options that matches your skills. For example, from my point of view, I was an architect and a project manager. I was looking into all of these wide spectrum of architectural practices, project developers, but to my surprise, when I came here, I started working for institutions that actually hire project managers for their capital infrastructure projects, which wasn't even on my radar when I came here. So, for example, in my previous experience, I worked in residential and commercial projects. Here, I came and I was able to convince people that my skills are transferable as well to hospitals and transit. So it's very important to work on certification as well, as Olabisi said, like try to search these job postings, see what they are actually looking for, what kind of softwares that they want you to work on in different jobs and in different positions. So for example, I know that in the Middle East, for example, in architecture, 3D Max is the most important thing. Here in Canada, they don't care about it that much. They care more about Revit or AutoCAD only. So PMP certificate, actually a PMP was the only thing that helped me when I came here. Forget about my master degree. The PMP, the project management, just convinced the people who I'm interviewing with that I actually speak the same language in project management as in North America. So all of these little details are very important to look at when you are planning to come to Canada. And I'm still actually learning how I will be better, how I can advance in my career, like how I can go to the next level. For example, here in the Middle East, an MBA for an engineer, it is not that important. But apparently here, if you want to become like an executive director or a VP or whatever, you will need to get an MBA. So that is what I'm working on at the moment, because this is the career path. This is what it needs to reach there. So always try to search for additional information for the positions that you are working towards.
And also that's very good points, Nour. And also I think, you know, the kind of the jobs in today's world, or where we are heading towards, it's no more learn and job kind of a scenario. It is learn, job, learn, job, learn, job. That's how it's all going to change, right? So we have to in any way be prepared for sort of having that mindset. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Veronica, before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I think the advice is always like have a plan A, plan B, plan C, but be flexible. Like, you know, you don't have to move to the big city. If something happens, like the mentees that in Vancouver wants to come to Toronto, maybe Noti and you and her can exchange. You can go to Vancouver and she can come to Toronto. And I agree, the research, because you are looking at a career. You're not just looking for a job. Yes, when you come to Canada, you need a job to pay your rent. But you need to learn, and I tell people, your best friend is Google. You research, you Google, but of course, you have to validate. So you have to talk to people, like learn to talk to people to validate research. So always look, like Nour said, look ahead. What is your next career move? And be flexible and adapt. Yes.
Yeah. And when you mentioned talk to people, I want to move to the topic of networking, the importance of networking in finding employment here. And Nour, you do have a specific experience. Maybe we can get started from there and, you know, take the topic from there in terms of networking and meeting people, mentorship. Would you like to share that, please?
Yes, sure. So I receive a lot of connection requests at the moment, and sometimes you just like read the message and you are driving, or you reply when you get home and you don't have a chance, and then you reply the next day. So be careful with the attitude when you are sending these messages to people who you'd like to connect with. Like if you saw that the message has been read but it wasn't replied, like be careful how you are going to follow up with the attitude or with the language that you are following up with, because this is actually reflects your professionalism and how you actually deal with people. And being nice, like saying like, I'm just following up on my previous message, please let me know if you have the time whenever you are free. That will give like a nice image about you when you are connecting with others. So it's very important to learn the skill of how to connect. From my experience as well, when I came to Toronto, I had a chance to get several mentors, like whether in the pre-arrival services or after I arrived here. And it's not always bright. You will have people who actually maybe were willing to help you, but they don't have the time after committing to you. So this is something to keep in mind, but be careful. Because, for example, in any services, when you are assigned a mentor, for example, you are not assigned another mentor. So try to benefit the most from this mentorship, and if it is not working, say it is not working. I shared a story yesterday about a mentor that didn't help at all, and like when I eventually was able to get a meeting with him, he just forgot about the meeting, and I went to his office and he wasn't there, and he was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, just come the next day. This is also not a professional way in dealing, like, okay, so sorry, I'm wasting my time. I have been waiting for a meeting with you for a couple of months now, and just stop it and try to find someone who has the time at that time to help you. So these are both stories from my
Absolutely. And this is part of the sort of a new immigrant building a new network in a new place experience. Most of us have gone through that, but I think what's important is to kind of stay focused on what is it that you need and what are the kind of network you're building, and think long term with network, right? Like
Yes.
network, this may not have worked out with this individual. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they're not going to add value to, you know, your journey. So move on and kind of stay positive, and you will find the right people eventually who will you know, add value to your role or what your knowledge that you need to kind of do better in your career in Canada. And so any experiences that you want to share, Veronica, Noti, Olabisi, about networking in general?
Sure.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. No, this topic is so close to my heart because I worked as a recruiter for many, many years, and I worked off of LinkedIn. And then even after I switched out of recruiting and I was in other HR related roles, I would typically always have job seekers reach out. When I moved over to Canada and I started job searching, I then experienced the other end of the experience, which is when you're trying to get insights from people and you're reaching out and you're as polite as possible, and maybe you're getting a breakthrough, maybe not. And then after as well, I was able to settle in Canada and I got a role that I was happy with. Even now as well, like Nour said, I still get lots and lots of requests. So there's this one incident where someone reached out to me, and to Nour's point, they reached out, they sent me a LinkedIn message. I didn't see it. They somehow found my email address and they emailed me. Then they also somehow found out that we had a mutual friend. So they reached out to that person as well. And then that person reached out to me, and this was probably all within a space of an hour, right? So, and because as well, since I moved to Canada, one of the things I promised myself personally is for anyone and everyone who reaches out to me on LinkedIn, I will respond. It's a personal decision that works for me, but it's obvious, it's a lot. So I essentially like block out hours of time just so that I can do that at the one go. And then like I have it on my calendar as well where it's rotating. But that really made me start thinking about this entire networking process, because a lot of people interpret what networking means in various ways. And so I actually wrote a short article on my LinkedIn profile about making an online connection with success. So and why I did that was in twofold. First, I've been wanting to say this for a while. And then secondly, I was hoping that anyone who was going to reach out to me would at least read that article and have a sense for how I think, how it would be best for them to reach out to me, right? And I really summarized it in five quick tips. To Nour's first point is show etiquette. It's so critical, right? Now, whether that's someone you know or you do not know, or they're mutual friends or anything else, a hello, a hi, making some sort of connection about what interested you in their profile. Was it an alma mater? Was it a previous experience? Was it a new country or another country they've worked in, or another area of specialization? Something, some way or somehow. And then the second one I wrote about was being realistic in expectations and demands. So for that person who reached out to me all in the space of 1 hour, I have to say I was very irritated, right? Not because it was just wrong timing. Like I was in transit, and by the time I get back to my phone, there are all these messages from this one person. And it turned out when I did reach out to them, they were asking me for something that I couldn't even help with in the first place. So not being able to situate your expectation and reality, like, okay, I want to work as an architect, for instance. If you're reaching out to someone who works in HR in a tech company, chances are they may not, well, now I don't know, so, but they may not know as many architects. You want to make sure that you're also being strategic in how you're networking, that you're finding people within your fields. You're also finding organic events. So even if it's an online event, like a career fair, for instance, or a networking fair, where everyone is there to specifically network, then you can take advantage of that as well and find ways that you can make connections, what you have in common, whether it's a name, whether it's a unique name, whether it's the fact that they sound like from your home country, whether it's the fact that even if they're not from your home country, their name means something else where you're from. There's so many ways that you can genuinely and authentically reach out. That is so critical, whether it's online or offline. And even when you do all those things right, people may not respond.
Yeah.
Right. So
just being open
as well.
to that, one, right? Yeah.
Exactly. There was this one person that I was connected to, and I like before I moved to Canada, and they were like, yeah, I just moved to Canada, we'll catch up. And I never caught up with them. I followed up so many times. And at some point I was like, yeah, I guess it is what it is. We just move on from there. So understanding that as well. And then whatever the person offers you, say thank you. We appreciate it. Because you may have expectations of what you think they can do, but they may not meet up to those expectations in your mind.
Yeah, and pay it forward, right? When others reach out, like, be there for them, right? That's what we can do, learn from our personal experiences and pay forward. I'm just looking at the time. It's been so amazing talking to you that I've not realized that we're almost up for the hour. So I want to do one last question if each one of you can share one tip that you have learned from your own experiences that you want to share for potential, like anyone who is immigrating to Canada, what should they do in terms of jobs? One tip from each one of you, and maybe we can start with Veronica.
Oh, I would say that be confident with your skills. Like, you have international experience. So ignore this lack of Canadian business. Just focus that you are talented, you're well educated. Most of the people I mentor have a master's degree or higher. Be confident, but be humble, like learn from people and appreciate your skill and be strong. I really like what Nour said. If that mentor didn't work out, don't beat yourself up. It's not your fault. And don't take it personal, because people have other things going on in their life. And you reach out to 5 people. If 3 people respond, great.
Yeah. Thank you, Veronica. Olabisi, how about you?
I would say that, you know, just be focused on what you want to do when you get to Canada, and before you leave, research what is needed for you to succeed in that field. What do you need to have? Check what you have and check what they're asking for, and try to say I can fill in the gaps. It's so important, you know. It must be a methodical plan. It can't be a chance thing or something that you do haphazardly. You know, check for what you have and what they're asking for, see the gaps, and see how you can, you know, mitigate or close those gaps before you enter, you know, into the corporate market in Canada.
Thank you so much. That's really good. Noti, how about you?
A little hard getting off of mute. I say have an elevator pitch ready or an elevator speech ready every single time. At least that has worked for me, because you never know where you have access to knowledge. It could be while you're in the grocery store and you're shopping for stuff, or when you're taking a walk within your community, or when you go to your place of worship, or you know, whatever else that you're doing. Maybe when you're browsing through somewhere online. So always have your elevator speech ready, because when you know what you're looking out for, then the way our mind works is it connects you to all of that information, and you somehow find a way to find out that information. Plus, our devices listen to us now anyway. So maybe if you just keep saying architecture or business analysis into your phone, maybe you get like 3 or 4 or 5 ads around how to find rules in those areas.
That's scary, Noti, but thank you. Nour.
Yeah, so one technical advice is that a lot of companies use a robot or software in order to filter resume. So that is why resume targeting is very important. Choose the correct words that were used in the posting in your resume when you are applying for everything, because you will need to beat that software in order for your resume to reach an actual person to read it, in order for you to get an interview. So even if you have the same qualification or everything that they want in the job posting, don't use the same resume for every job. Beat the software to get to the next stage.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Nour, and thank you, everybody. This has been such an insightful and inspirational conversation. I wish we had more time, but we will have to wrap it up today. But I hope all the everyone who attended, I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways for them from your shared experiences. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time, and have a lovely day.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.